Hey everyone. My name is Josh. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm a senior at Tufts. I'm the founder of TouredIt, which, as you guys might know, offers these personalized college tours. And I'm very happy to be here today to put on this webinar. This How I Got In series. It's the last one in our series right now. We have a ton of really smart business students here who are here. They're all tour guides, and as they're talking, if you guys are interested in visiting any of these schools or specifically with any of these students, please feel free to scan the QR code. They're all great. They're all smart. They know their campus inside and out. And so, before further ado, I welcome you guys to a great presentation.
Thank you so much, Joshua Bernstein. Hello, guys. My name is Eric Ginsberg. I'm a master tutor at Solution Prep, where we do important things like college admissions coaching and SAT and ACT prep throughout Central Jersey, as well as online nationwide. And as a college admissions coach, I have recommended TouredIt to a lot of my families who work with me. I have taken my own TouredIt tours. I find it very helpful to go look at colleges, and as great as it is to go on an official tour, which I certainly do, and I visited hundreds of colleges, it's always helpful both to add a TouredIt tour to my visit because I get to see that student side as opposed to just the admission sales pitch. And I find it's also very helpful for me when my schedule doesn't quite fit the school's schedule, like an evening or a weekend, or during school breaks when there might be a student around. So I've found it very useful in those ways, and that's why I'm so thrilled to be moderating today's conversation with TouredIt and several of the TouredIt tour guides you'll get to meet tonight. And I'll let you guys take a moment now to introduce yourselves. Why don't you just go in the order in which you are in the spreadsheet from left to right?
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Mardini. I'm a senior at NYU Stern, concentrating in finance and co-concentrating in entrepreneurship. A little fun fact about me is I love to go to the gym. I'm from Toms River, New Jersey, and I'm very looking forward to speaking with all of you today and giving you some of my advice and inputs on my experience at NYU.
Hi, I'm Gabby. I'm from Montville, New Jersey. I'm a junior at Indiana University at the Kelley School of Business, majoring in entrepreneurship and corporate innovation with a co-major in business analytics. I'm excited to speak to you all.
Hi, everyone. My name's Marissa Vosberg. I'm a senior at the University of Pennsylvania studying finance and operations, originally from Wisconsin. I'm really excited to be here tonight.
Hey everyone, I'm Ignacio Garcia. I'm a senior here at the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business. I'm originally from Spain, but I grew up in Miami, and I'm very excited to get to know all of you today as well.
So thank you guys so much. And for people watching, parents, students, you may notice that when our tour guides are speaking, there's a little information about them in the bottom right. You see information about them in the bottom left, information about their school. But worth noting, though, tonight we are talking specifically about business schools. The stats we have are for the school in general, because generally speaking, colleges don't report things like the acceptance rate specifically for their business school, or the yield specifically for their business school. So do keep in mind that that includes everything from, business to, pre-med to communications to, you know, interpretive dance. It's all mixed in. So certainly certain things like, the business school may have a lower acceptance rate than the overall college, where that's a big draw to the school. It's just important to note. So we're going to start our conversation asking some questions where our tour guides are going to give their opinions on things. And then parents, students who are with us, you can always start a new chat and pose your own question. If there's something that you'd like to know, you don't need to wait till the end to ask that question. We do have somebody monitoring the chat this whole time. So if one of your questions is something that we're not already going to get to, we definitely want to invite you to participate and be a part of this conversation. But I'm going to start off by asking our tour guides, what are maybe, some other colleges or programs that you were accepted to? And ultimately, what made you choose your college? Anthony, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so I kind of always knew from the beginning that I wanted to attend NYU. Just a little background on that. My sister was actually a year older than me. She graduated last May. And she attended NYU, and she had nothing but great things to say. And obviously knowing that I wanted to go into business, I figured that my older sister's there. I feel a connection to NYU. I would always visit her during the year when I was a senior. So I always had like a particular love for NYU. But kind of a background even before that is I'm from New Jersey, so New York, Manhattan has always kind of been a realm of like where I've been raised and grown up in. Like I would always come to Manhattan. Um, so I kind of already knew that I wanted to attend NYU. But in terms of other schools, obviously, like sometimes not everything works out in your favor, but there's always the ability to like pivot from there. So I rally like a list of 10 schools that I thought were a fit for myself and what I wanted to do with my career and my future. So other schools like Cornell, Dartmouth, UPenn, all schools that I applied to, some that I did get into, some that I didn't. But I did decide to pursue ED2 at NYU and miraculously and very honored to actually have gotten accepted into NYU. And that's kind of where I decided to pursue my undergraduate career.
Yeah, speaking from my experience, I really narrowed it down to 3 programs at the end. And so I was in between 2 schools that had an undergraduate business school and then one where I would have majored in economics since they didn't have an undergrad business school. And what really came down to selecting Penn for me, was one, just having a dedicated business school. I thought that would really be helpful for me considering I knew I wanted to go into some area of business. And then when evaluating kind of like those 2 undergrad business schools that I was deciding between, something that really drew me to Penn at least, or to Wharton, I guess, was that it no matter what your specific concentration was, you all had a very like you all share a base of classes that everyone has to take. They're called like our business fundamentals. And I really like that that kind of gave me the optionality to kind of back into what I wanted to major in rather than having to decide at the very beginning and then maybe having to pivot later. I thought that just gave me the most amount of optionality and kind of the best way for me to discover what it was that I really wanted to do.
For me, I knew I wanted a Big Ten school, so I kind of applied across the board to basically all the Big Ten schools kind of in the Midwest and the East Coast, like Wisconsin, Maryland, Ohio, and then a few other schools. So I applied to Northeastern and Pitt and UPenn, and then out of all the schools I got into, Kelley was the best business school, and so that's why I ended up there.
Yeah, kind of sort of different for me. I always thought I was going to stay in state, so in Florida, so I applied to a lot of state schools like University of Florida, Florida State, and a couple of business schools out of the state. Eventually, what ended up leaning me more towards Michigan was actually coming to campus and visiting and learning more about the business program. So similar to Wharton, Michigan has sort of a broad-based business degree where you get to learn a lot about the different concentrations within business before you actually choose your major and concentration. So that was something that I found super helpful and that really helped me kind of lean more towards the business school here at Michigan.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that good feedback. Moving down the line, what were some of the steps that you took to be a good candidate for admissions there? And maybe how confident or nervous were you about your chances of being admitted?
Yeah, I'll get started. I would say that like I kind of used a funnel approach throughout my high school years. So I was really involved in a lot of things kind of when I first came in. And then as I got older and really found the areas that I was really interested in, I kind of honed in on there. A lot of things or something you'll hear like very often in college admissions is like quality over quantity. And I think I really leaned into that advice and had 1 or 2 like really specific extracurriculars that not only showed that I had really good or qualities of a candidate of an admissions candidate, but they were also unique to me and something that like was different, definitely something that differentiated me from other people, and also kind of contributed to my passion for business and kind of my why pen and why business, which I think just made it my application very well rounded, and really told like a fulsome story through both my extracurriculars and my essays.
Yeah, for me, I would kind of echo a little bit of what Marissa said. Obviously, school is like the number one priority. You should focus on your studies coming into college, which is obviously a given. But I think outside of that, similar on the lines of what Marissa said, is like your extracurriculars kind of like shape who you are as a person going into college and kind of exploring your options and what you want to do with your future. And I think that's particularly important because not only does it shape kind of what you find interesting or what you're particularly passionate about at that young age, I think that ultimately allows them to notice the type of person you are, almost like a personality thing. For me, why for my why NYU, I think that the particular advantage I had when applying to NYU is my ability to be super personable. And I think a lot of the times that doesn't go unnoticed. So be true to yourself, be true to your passions. Don't change your interests or your hobbies for someone that's reading your essay or reading your Common App. Like that shouldn't be the case. You should choose a school that you feel like you belong at, where your passions align with them. And I think that's kind of what separates a candidate and gives you the best chances of getting in. In terms of was I nervous? Was I confident? I was obviously a little confident in myself. I mean, I'd hope so at least. But obviously the nerves are always there. But I think being nervous is also a very healthy thing. Like don't set your expectations high, aim for the moon, but you're always gonna end up at the place you ultimately belong at, and that's what really matters. So
That's great feedback. I feel like a lot of students and parents kind of make up their mind about how they envision a college or how they envision the kinds of students there based on this one person they know who got in. And based on this one person they know who got in, they're like, okay, so that's a college for students like that. It's all a bunch of this guy that I know or this gal from down the street. And obviously that's not the case. Obviously, colleges have a broad array of students, but if you had to describe maybe like a typical student at your college, what are some of the things that a lot of them share that a lot of them have in common that applicants and prospective students can expect of the kind of culture and climate when they're considering their future classmates?
Yeah, I can start here, and I agree with you, Eric. I think especially at Michigan, everyone truly is different. There's a lot of diversity on campus, and you realize as soon as you get to the university. But I think one big thing I found at Michigan is that everyone is very determined and goal driven. Everyone comes with such high aspirations, and they really do work every day to try to achieve those throughout their time here in college. I think another big thing about Michigan that I really enjoy is kind of that work hard, play hard culture. So there's a good balance between academics, but then also a lot of fun stuff to do outside of campus, whether that's sports. And a lot of ton of fun opportunities to do outside of the classroom. So that's something I really love about Michigan.
Yeah, going off of that, I would say very similar to Indiana. There's so many students here. Everyone really does live a different life, and there is a lot. Like a lot of people are very studious. There's a lot of schoolwork. Kelley, it's not an easy school, but there's also a lot of fun. I know, like today, Uber One had their a big promotion here, and they had a little arcade going in the middle of campus, and like you could win prizes and discounts, and that was really fun. And pop ups like that, people like to participate in, and there's always just stuff going around on campus.
Yeah, that's great. Um, I have visited hundreds of colleges, and it really helps me know more about a college when I go visit it. And one thing that impressed me about IU, Gabby, your school, is not that you don't know that, but just for everybody else. Gabby's school, you guys. Um, when I was speaking with students there, which I do try to do whenever I visit a college, just meet the people. Don't be afraid to go talk to students, especially if they're stuck behind a counter at work and they've got no one else to talk to anyway. They could be talking to you. Um, but they told me that students were really kind of bonded by major, that like the program they were in really helped them build a friend group and have those things in common. Um, from all those different walks of life. Now it is at the time of this recording, it is the end of September. So college applications, the earliest ones are due October 15th. A lot of other early application deadlines November 1st. So everybody's trying to put the finishing touches on their college application essays. And so I was wondering if any of you guys would mind sharing a little bit about your Common App essay. And what do you think were its strengths? What was your story about, and what do you think it told the readers about you?
yeah, so I think I can start with that, and I think I touched upon it a little bit in my last answer. These college admissions advisors are reading thousands and hundreds of essays in a day, in a week. So you really got to find something that will truly make you stick out. And for me, I really thought that being as personable and open and transparent as possible in my essay would almost give me some type of advantage over other applicants. For me particularly, I decided to speak about some family health issues that my dad faced when I was going through high school. And for me, that was just like a life changing experience that I underwent. And I thought that being able to open up and share about my experiences as a senior in high school and how ultimately that has shifted my goals in life is a really good way to kind of touch on those people who are reading these essays and kind of giving them the bigger picture as to like why does this particular student want to be here. And I think that's honestly the most valuable thing you could really do. And for me, it took me so many times to really write an essay that really meant something to me. And I think once you're able to kind of take a step back and apply that what you find valuable in your life and put it into words, I think you guys will have a really good chance of doing that. It might not be the first thing you do, it might not be the first thing you think of, it might be something that I have to sit there and think for a while about. But once you figure it out and once you get the ball rolling, it's smooth sailing from there.
Yeah, I would say that my top or my Common App essay was a little bit more unique. I hadn't there wasn't like one specific challenge or one specific incident that I really like could pinpoint within my high school career. And I knew I wanted something that was very like eye-catching and eye-grabbing from the very start. And so I actually wrote about like have had a cat from like the time I was in kindergarten all the way up until I was a senior in high school. And I thought, who better to talk about my characteristics and my qualities than him. And so definitely that's something that like you don't see very often, but he could really speak to I guess you could say, could really speak to, how I grow in and how I developed all of my extracurriculars. And it was a good way to kind of say all of the nice things that I wanted them to know about me without sounding conceited. And so I thought that that was kind of like a very eye catching and something that they wanted to read more of and be like allowed me to convey my best qualities and how my extracurriculars had shaped me in a way that wasn't quite so conceited as a first person point of view may have been.
Definitely an interesting idea. Students ask me like, should I take a risk? And my philosophy is if that's who you are, you can. If that's not who you are, you just heard it on TikTok, don't try to become that person because you're not going to execute it as well as somebody who that's who they are. So, I think that that was a something very smart. And for students who may be hearing that and thinking, oh, I'll write that too. No, 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 no. Come up with something that creative too. Not just do that because that's your idea and they need to have their idea. So let me ask you guys a question because uh, as students are navigating their way through high school, they've got their parents around and they the bus stops at their house and picks them up and brings them where they have to be. But college is such a different world where you are a lot more responsible for yourself, where you have to, find the resources that are going to help you accomplish, whether it's getting to class or succeeding in class or succeeding outside the classroom. But what campus activities have you guys found most helpful in navigating college life?
Yeah, I can start here. I think something that was always really useful for me was relying on the faculty on campus, specifically in the business school. So once you get to college, you're essentially assigned to different counselors, whether that's career development counselors or academic advisors. And I think those two have been really helpful for me, especially when figuring out what I wanted to major in and what career I wanted to go in. So I found myself frequently scheduling appointments with them, chatting over my personal life, but also, things that were worrying me throughout my 4 years here in college. And I think really having those people with you throughout those 4 years and through all the changing circumstances that you might face is extremely helpful and something that everyone should rely on regardless of the university.
Yeah, going off of that, so I'm in Kelley Honors, and I've been in a small program of that since freshman year. So that means I got assigned a specific advisor where normally if you're in normal Kelley, you get like all of Kelley advisors. So you can kind of book an appointment with anyone or like grow a relationship with one. So that in general is always there for any school, even if you're minoring a school or in like the honors college, which is like a different entity, they have their own advisors, which are really good. So you have a slew of people to reach out to. And then in terms of that like career help in that. Kelly's really good and has a whole career service center with like upperclassmen students and professionals that you can book appointments with that whether it be like looking for an on-campus job, an internship, like I book appointments, they go 20-minute appointments for like like resume review or case practice or interview practice. So any sort of professional development, you can book appointments and talk to people there and they're always open, which is nice. So between that and the advisors, you never really feel lost.
For me, something I found really helpful has been using the alumni network. And specifically something that I did within my sophomore year was I reached out to alumni who were like a little bit more developed in their career. So probably like 10, 15 years out, and purely just ask them if they could tell me about like what they did. And I just wanted to learn. And I found them to all be really, really receptive and they wanted to help considering I didn't really have any skin in the game. I didn't really need anything from them. I purely just wanted to hear them talk about their jobs, which most people are very happy to do. And that was really helpful for me. I found some great mentors out of that opportunity. And also just had a very clear direction of like kind of more longer term opportunities as well, which has been really helpful in deciding my career goals.
And that's really helpful to know. I had an interesting conversation with a parent not that long ago. He said his son was struggling with college applications, and I said, we can help. And he said, no, no, when he's at college, he's going to be on his own. So he has to learn how to do things on his own. And I was just dumbfounded, this idea that at college you're on your own. Because what is college? College is so many people who are there to help you, whether it's an RA or a TA, whether it's the writing lab, the math lab, the tutoring lab, whether it's the, career services office that can help you prepare for interviews and find internships, or professors who have office hours and mentors that literally are set up there to help you succeed. So I think when I speak with college students, and I ask them, what's your number one thing you wish every incoming freshman knew, they almost always say, uh like, go meet the people who are going to help you. Like, go establish a relationship with them day one, like join clubs, meet people. Don't wait until you're struggling halfway through that first semester to find those resources. Get them immediately when you move there. So it's encouraging to hear how much you guys have been able to find. But all that said, what surprised you maybe most about how college or your college experience has been different from high school, or from your high school experience?
I can start us off. Honestly, the freedom. I felt like I had a lot of freedom in high school in general. I had my car, like my town, my parents weren't that strict. But being here, there's no structure to your day. You can kind of do your schedule however you want. And I've had experiences like right now, I have all my classes from 8 a.m. to 11. And last semester, I had them all from like 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. So just the difference in how you structure your day and what you do with that time has been really different and really interesting. And honestly, like a growing point to how productive I want to be and how I want my like days and life kind of look like while I'm here.
Yeah, I'll kind of also build off that a little bit. I do agree, like the flexibility and kind of the schedule, the types of times you could prioritize in your schedule is a lot more unique than obviously in high school when you're expected to start at this time, end at this time. So I do think that flexibility is like extremely valuable, especially when you want to try to expand your horizons and find different interests that you could fill in throughout the day. But for me more particularly, I think just the overall experience in living in Manhattan is a lot harder than people really think because NYU doesn't really have a traditional campus. The campus here at NYU is kind of sprinkled in throughout a lot of Manhattan, up from 4th Street all the way up to 23rd Street. So a lot of the times students kind of feel like they're a little disconnected given that they don't really have like a community. But what I found is that the communities, there's a lot of communities, there's a lot of clubs, there's a lot of extracurriculars that you could find community through. It is a lot harder just given the fact that there's not a direct way to find these things, given that there's no campus. But once you kind of put your foot through the door, you start meeting more people. I really do think that you are able to find something here. It just takes a little more time than traditional campuses. But at least from my experience, I do think that living in Manhattan and kind of being away from the slow paced environment and living in New Jersey is very different. But I do think it helps you grow as a person, become a little more mature.
Yeah, for me, so I went to a smaller high school. So one thing that really surprised me when I got to Michigan, which was how much school spirit there is here. So whether it's the football games or just walking around the college town, it really surprised me how much people are bonded to the school. And similar to Marissa, it's been so easy for me to reach out to alumni, whether it's for work or just to have a conversation about their careers. Everyone's so willing to respond and to get on the phone with you if they see, the word Michigan student in the subject line. So I think just the overall sense of school spirit here and the bond to the university is something that really surprised me for the good.
Yeah, and if I could go back to something, Anthony, you were saying, because of how spread apart NYU is, I think so. Last year NYU received over 110,000 applications. And believe it or not, that does not make it the number one most applied to college in America. That distinction belongs to UCLA. Number two is UC San Diego, but NYU is in the top 10. But I think a lot of people don't understand your point about how spread out the campus is. And I was curious, if you could share, because as opposed to a UMich or an IU, um, because it's not this like enclosed space, is there any kind of interplay? Is there any interdisciplinary opportunities between the Stern School of Business, the Tandon School of Engineering, the Tisch School of the Arts, everything that they've got going on there? Do you have those opportunities, or are you kind of in your own Stern space, separated from the rest of that?
Yeah, no, there's definitely opportunities for you to like mingle and kind of meet people from all different types of schools. And I think that's kind of what makes NYU very special is that yeah, like being in Stern is one thing, and you do find community through Stern, just given the fact that you're forced to take classes that Stern requires, which is cool. But I think what makes NYU a lot more special is the ability to meet people with, interests from everywhere, whether it's film, whether it's acting, whether it's sports management. And NYU does a really good job at offering those opportunities. Like I'm sure other schools have it with like Club Fest and things like that, different events. But there is definitely an intersection between all schools. Everyone kind of feels like they belong somewhere, right? And whether it's through a club or a sport, there's definitely that intersection. I mean, Stern has its own network. It has its own thing going on with like what you're able as a Stern student to reach, whether that's alumni network or just opportunities in general. But through the grand scheme of it all, it might be a little harder to find those things, but NYU definitely does offer it.
Yeah, thanks so much for that perspective. So can I ask you guys, maybe what's been like your favorite class or favorite professor or favorite project or any kind of educational experience you've had so far, and what's made that really a standout opportunity for you?
Yeah, I can start here. My favorite class so far has been this class called Entrepreneurship E-commerce. So it's taught by a successful e-commerce entrepreneur who built his own business, his own e-commerce business. So he's a great professor, which already made the class really interesting. But what I really loved about the class was we actually got to build our own business. So it started with an idea from scratch, and then he guided us all the way from building a website to creating a financial forecast to actually start selling products. So although it was only one semester long, we really got to see the whole start to end process of building a business online, which I thought was extremely interactive and a really interesting opportunity.
So I think what at least IU in general and Kelley, like the one class or I guess multiple classes that everyone talks about is I-Core, which is really unique and most people don't know what that is. I didn't know what that was going into it, but junior year, first semester, you'll take these four block classes. It's like block scheduling. You're with the same people. You take two classes each day, and it's marketing, finance, operations, and leadership, which is very unique and everyone has to take it. So you get a good balance of just like knowing every part of business, especially before you're like stuck in your major. And as a junior, I'm in that right now. And it's just been so interesting to learn all these different aspects. And I'm learning about new areas of business I didn't really know about because it wasn't my major, and like finding new career paths I might want to pursue. And it's just the professors are all great and everyone really talks highly of these classes. And it's just a really unique opportunity that other business schools don't offer.
Yeah, for me, kind of similar to Ignacio, to be honest. And I'm actually doing that class right now. It's called the Startup Lab, and it's with Professor Cynthia Franklin. Essentially similar vibes. You kind of are assigned or present your venture idea, something that you're passionate about, something that you want to do on an entrepreneurial level. And pretty much with that class is you work on a project throughout the course of the semester. You work on your venture. You kind of scale it as much as you can, and you are entered into the venture capital competition that NYU hosts annually. And through that competition, you're able to meet with different investors, different alumni. And with that program, if you do end up winning the program or winning the competition, you're actually given a $70,000 grant through the eLab, which is the entrepreneurship lab here at NYU Stern, that allows you to meet with investors, work with investors, and actually pursue whatever venture idea you do have. So that's something I'm currently going through now. Not a lot of feedback as of right now, it's only been a couple weeks of school, but so far the experience has been great. I've learned truly a lot, and I think tomorrow is my first class where I can actually start, working on my venture idea and actually pursuing it.
All right. Well, don't leak it to us because we could steal it. So we talked about like what was the best class or experience. Obviously, we have to talk about what's been the toughest class or professor or project that you've dealt with so far, and what do you think has made it so tough?
I can get us started. I would say it's kind of between two classes for me. One was called Valuations. It's a very popular course here at Penn. And the other is an advanced private equity class that I'm currently in. And I think what makes them both so hard is that they're very fast paced and kind of employ a sink or swim mentality, and that you're kind of expected to just go and do these projects, which are oftentimes it's like a full valuation model, as well as a write up. So at least for the valuations course, which I guess I'll highlight a little bit more since I completed it. It's a full write up, about 115 pages long, as well as like a full financial model that you come up with all of the assumptions. So it's a lot of work, very time consuming. And then you also have to manage, group project expectations, working with different personalities. And although it's really difficult, I think it prepares you for the real world and what it's like in a corporate setting very, very well. And so as hard as it is, I'm very glad that I took it.
For me, it was also equity valuation. It's taught by Professor Demoterin. He's actually known as the dean of equity valuation, which I think is pretty interesting and cool. But for that class, honestly, like for me, I'm not really too into equity valuation. I didn't pursue investment banking for a reason. But I did find that class extremely challenging just because it's honestly very conceptual based, a lot of math involved. And given the notorious, I guess, title of this professor, I kind of also felt a little intimidated just because all of his questions, whether it's from problem sets to exams, were questions he actually makes for himself, questions that he actually solves and makes sure that they do make sense, and then he proceeds to test you and give you homeworks about it. So I was very challenged with that class, but I do think that that was a time for me to really put my foot down when it came to studying, and I definitely had to put a lot more work in compared to that of my peers. But again, overall, very, very valuable experience that I had with Professor Motoring.
Awesome. So Um, obviously none of you guys work in, college admissions. And if you do have a job in college admissions, you're not making the decisions about who gets accepted or doesn't. And, we can all hypothesize about why they chose you over, anybody else who applied. But, from what you know about what it takes to get into your college from your own experience and maybe from whatever's in the ether of talking with your classmates or hearing about admissions and seeing new freshman classes come in behind you. Is there any advice that you would give to a prospective student about getting admitted to your college or even just getting admitted specifically directly into the business school by your college?
Yeah, I can go first. So, Kelley just recently changed their direct admit program and how they let people in. So I didn't experience that, so I can't give direct advice on that. But I know at least for me, when I applied, the essay was just basic of why do you want to go to Indiana, and just really be yourself. Have substantial reasons of why you want to go here. I know I talked a lot about Kelley and then the study abroad program because we have a great study abroad program, especially aligned with Kelley. I know it's hard for a lot of schools to have business classes you can take abroad that qualify for major credit, but just really showing that you want to go to the school and why makes such a difference.
I'm really glad, actually, before we move on, Gabrielle, that you brought that up, the admission policy change. Is there anything you can share about that? Obviously, I can give wonky stats, but what was it before, and what have you heard about what it is with this current cycle and moving forward?
I'm not really sure the main differences, but I just know they made it like harder and easier because I know before I had friends who applied and didn't submit like a test score and were automatically rejected because of it. Not from the school, but from being addressed in it, but also being pre-Kelley, if you maintain a good GPA, like, it's very easy to go from that into Kelley. And I know for now it's giving everyone more of a fair chance, but it's also making it harder for everyone with or without the test score because
Yeah.
there's just a more pool of people.
So to clarify about that, what had been the case for many years was that if students met a specific GPA and specific SAT score requirement, they were an automatic admit. It was a guaranteed acceptance to the college. Everything else was kind of a formality if you checked those two boxes under specific criteria. And then anybody else who applied for Kelley School of Business would be considered on a space available basis after those students with those grades and scores took those spots. And so I guess I've been looking at it from one side of the perspective so far, which is, oh dang, I've had these students that for years I've been saying, okay, you got these grades, you got these scores, we're putting IU on as a safety school for you because of your grades and scores being a guaranteed direct admit. And so I've been seeing the harder side of it, but it's interesting to hear your perspective on. It's also opening the door to other students who maybe didn't check those exact two boxes, but have other phenomenal things going for them, which is how things work in general in college admissions. That has been atypical, and so Kelley is kind of switching format to what all the other colleges are doing into a more holistic review of application. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail the conversation, but that's just been interesting to me.
Yeah, I guess as we're on the topic, and since I was gonna go next, I can talk about so Ross also just this year had a policy change. Essentially, now you have the option to apply early decision to the business school, which is going into effect this year. And although there isn't much information on the whole thing for now, it is an option that's now available. So if Ross is your number one option, I highly encourage that, as it will definitely help in the application process. I guess some advice I got that I found really useful of just getting into college in general is kind of emphasizing quality over quantity when it comes to your experiences. So I think something that college admissions really likes is to see that you've had one activity where you've really spent a lot of time and involvement in and really made a tangible impact and had some sort of leadership role, as opposed to having a ton of different activities where you might have, spread yourself a little too thin. So I think, really being committed to an activity and showing your involvement and impact in it is sort of even more important than having just a ton of activities.
I think that goes well to the idea that colleges are looking for not necessarily the most well-rounded students who check every box, but the most well-rounded student body of passionate students who can come together and cross-pollinate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just echoing as well what Ignacio and Gabby said, I think it's very important to kind of apply yourself outside the classroom. Like, yeah, colleges look for GPA, but they also do look for kind of what leadership roles, what commitments you partake as an high school student, and kind of how you can carry those interests and those passions with you as you apply to colleges. But as well as that, something that kind of applied to me a little more is outside of just like applying to a business school, I tried to show them that I kind of had some type of entrepreneurial mindset. That doesn't mean like you're expected to have your own company going out of high school, but show them kind of like what interests you, kind of where your passions align. If you can apply it to business, that's great. It's not a guaranteed thing. That's not something you have to do. But I think it's an advantage that could possibly work for you if it does apply. But I think overall, just the main important thing is show the people that are reading your essays or your common apps that you have commitment to other things, that you have passions for other things, and that you plan on carrying those passions and those interests with you to college. I think that goes a long way.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for that. So we talked a little bit about why how a student might be better equipped to be accepted into your school. What advice would you give an accepted student, somebody who's applied and they've gotten the yes, but like you probably got yeses from more than one college, about why they might want to choose your school? What are the strengths you feel about your school, your program, as opposed to, other colleges, whether they're in this conversation with us today or just other schools that you turned down because of the strengths of your program?
Yeah, I guess right here, since I kind of touched on this for a bit before, but I think one or two big things for me were, one, if you have the chance, visit the university. I think there's a lot of value in doing a tour, especially if it can be guided by students, and to really get that student perspective of what it feels like to be on campus. What are the different things you can get involved in, and do you really see yourself being a student in this university? And then I think number two, and kind of going off of that, is having conversations with people in the university. Things like this, for me, were really helpful. seeing if I could really connect with the people that go to the school, if I could find my place, and if it's somewhere where I can spend the next 4 years of my life is what eventually led me to make my decision.
Yeah, going off of that, like, Indiana University as a whole is, like, a stunning school. It's big, it's large, everything about it's just so nice, very pretty. The town itself is big and active, and it's just really nice. It's a nice place to live even though it is middle of Indiana. And in the Kelley school itself, like, I was very unaware of all the stuff Kelley had to offer before I came here, and once I came, it was kinda just like, wow, there's so much from, like, the career services, which I touched on, and the classes that you can take and the majors and the workshops, which are very unique. Kelley has really prestigious workshops in different fields, so investment banking or consulting. I'm personally in the entrepreneurship workshop, which has been a really cool experience, and just stuff to go along with that, along with their alumni network, 'cause Kelley, about each grade has, like, 2,000 kids around that, and so the alumni network is really strong. People are really there's so many people out there who are willing to talk to you, so that in itself is also amazing.
Yeah, I think I touched on this briefly in the beginning. Given that there's not a traditional campus here, I think you just have a naturally higher chance of meeting people that you might not traditionally meet in other universities. And I think while there are some disadvantages to not having a traditional campus, I do think that there's a lot of advantages as well because you're surrounded by a lot of people in the city. Manhattan's obviously a very prominent location for people going into finance or anything business oriented. And I think having the ability to meet these people, to build relationships which I think is arguably one of the most important factors when it comes to business and finance. I think is truly valuable. And at least for me, I had a ton of mentors here that I wouldn't have typically had in other universities, and I'm sure other universities do offer that same mentorship, but for me, just being able to go to their offices and visit them on their sites and in their locations, I just think allowed me to kind of, grasp the bigger picture of it rather than just, emailing and networking with people. I actually have the opportunity to go to some offices and actually meet people outside the grand scheme of things. And I do think that is a very cool experience to have, especially if you're interested in, business and finance.
Yeah, those are really great insights, guys. Thank you so much for sharing those. What would you say? You've been at your school for a few years now. What's like a quirk or a trick or a hack that you would tell every incoming first year student at your college, or maybe that you just wish you knew sooner?
Yeah, I'll kick us off. The biggest piece of advice that I give to everyone, and I think this applies to people not just at Penn but everywhere, is to use a GCal. It's so much easier to like put everything in at the beginning of the semester and really start off organized rather than not. And the beauty of a GCal is it's on your phone, it's on your computer, it's on every device you have, so you have everything with you at all times, no matter what. And I think a lot of people by the end of like by senior year, they'll be using it. But I know a lot of freshman year, a lot of my friends weren't using it and are using like a paper planner. And it got really difficult. So that's my biggest hack, I guess you could say, to stay organized. And I think it pays so many dividends in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say the same thing. I think being organized in college is super important, and not only with your Google Calendar, but also getting familiar with your Gmail. You know how to structure your emails, how to have an email signature, what's the proper format you need to do when, especially when you're sending more professional emails. But maybe perhaps something outside of like the academic and professional. I think it's very important to just get involved outside of the classroom, whether that's through clubs, different sports, intramural clubs. I think getting involved in your first year is super important to realize what it is you want to do for the rest of your 4 years in college and what sort of communities do you want to get involved in. So I think being involved overall is something that's super useful, especially when you first get to campus.
Thank you. Just in having the conversation, it's um kind of gotten me thinking about something. I just threw it into the spreadsheet that we're working off of as we're having this conversation. But so often I have students working on college applications, working on essays, and they're being asked about like how have they helped in their community, or they're being asked like what major do they want and how will it lead them to help in some way, some positive, helping change the world, make it a better place, solve the world's problems, like all of these really positive things. And I feel as though a lot of high school students who are considering business, A, may not know the differences between subjects like accounting, economics, finance, like business in general. their brain kind of puts them all into one thing. And two, they may not see a direct line between a major like that, where perhaps they see like job security and financial security connected to helping or making the world a better place. And I think maybe sometimes it's a little unfair to ask that of high school students, like, how is your career in finance going to make the world a better place? Or something like that. But if I could put any of you who'd volunteer on the spot, now that you've been through, one, two, three, some of you in your fourth year of studying business, perhaps your college experiences have brought those concepts front and center, and you've seen some of the ways in which business in general, or perhaps your major or focus, is linked to something positive outside of just dollars and cents. And for students maybe struggling to come up with that connection, what has your experience been like in the classroom? If anybody's brave enough to take a curveball from me.
I can get started. So I would say within my essay, this was actually one of the questions that I was asked. And it can be really hard to kind of relate business, which is usually seen as a little bit more like intrinsic and self-centered, back to helping. But something that I talked about was that like Penn had a very specific ESG concentration. And although I didn't want to be an ESG concentration, I said that I wanted to take a few classes and just learn about how like coming from a rural area, we could like make supply chains a little bit more secure, and a little bit more ethical. And I thought that was a really great way to like highlight kind of my background. It was gave me an opportunity to talk about like specific classes I wanted to take at the university, and also showed how I wanted to contribute to my community. So I think it was like a really well-rounded answer that kind of fit all three of those points. And kind of now on the other side of things, I would say that like there's a very business is a very personable side of things. And so a lot of the times what you're doing in business is you're helping people through some of the biggest moments of your life. So if you're working in a bank and you're helping people, finance a mortgage, or if you're in investment banking and you're helping somebody sell their company, you're really helping these people navigate some of the biggest challenges and biggest changes in their lives. And these are some of the most important decisions they'll ever make. And so I think like you can really relate back to, some of your interpersonal skills if you're a very interpersonal person, and how you kind of want to help people like make those decisions and really be a guiding hand for them in a very personable way that highlights some of your strengths.
Thank you. Anybody else want to get put on the spot for this one?
I can go next. So I had a very specific major when choosing college because I wanted an entrepreneurship major from the get-go. And so if I was asked that question, which I don't think I filled that out for any of my applications, but I would focus more on the companies I want to create and how like certain ideas I have would help the community and I guess the world as like a whole rather than just like be profitable.
Fair. All right, something a little lighter, guys. And it's something that, even though I'd like to think that a college is an institution of higher learning, there are certain creature comforts that, just day to day, we can't live without. So be honest, guys. How's the food?
Yeah, I guess I could start. To be quite honest, not the best. I mean, it's definitely food that's edible, and it's definitely food that will get you what you need by the end of the day. But ever since I went into my sophomore year, I started to branch out into just living in an apartment. So that completely just made me cook my own food, use my kitchen. I felt more comfortable doing so. I felt like the food I was eating in the dining halls didn't really meet the needs I wanted, I guess, here at college. But I do think what's particularly more unique is that there's a bunch of like small scale restaurants around New York City that kind of make you adapt to different types of food. Like prior to coming to NYU, I was a very straightforward person when it came to my foods, but being here, I've been actually able to expand my palate, expand my taste buds, and I think that's pretty unique. I've dined into different types of cuisines, different ethnic foods, and I think having the experience and opportunity to kind of try those things is honestly very unique. But on campus, not the best, doable. Freshman year, you're just gonna have to deal with it, unfortunately. But once you kind of move through sophomore year, junior year, senior year, I feel like you just overall have a lot more freedom with that, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, going next. I really liked the food on campus. The dining halls weren't particularly the best on the weekends because some things were not there. But Sundays for lunch, there were always chicken tenders, and the dining hall, at least the one near me, had a really good Mexican bar, and I really liked the Asian food as well. And they always had like burgers and french fries and chicken. So like always something for people to eat. And then moving on to sophomore year and junior year, I guess, I live in my sorority house and we have a very big Greek life here. So I have a chef in my house and a meal plan. So that's a very different perspective than making my own food as I have yet to do because I don't have access to a kitchen. But that's been definitely interesting. And some meals aren't the best, but I have to say majority of them are very good and different than dining hall experience.
Yeah, I would say I really like the food scene in Ann Arbor. Like Anthony, after my freshman year, I transitioned to like cooking in my house. But when I do go out for dinner with my friends, I find that there's a lot of good spots. There's this one really good Cuban place called Frida. So if any of you ever visit campus, I really highly recommend that place. But there's a ton of variety, a bunch of different cuisines that I've gotten to try. So I really love all the different restaurants around campus. And as a senior, I've been trying to try as much of them as I can. So I'll have better recs by the end of this year for sure.
Yeah, certainly, on campus food is one thing, but off campus food is something entirely different. And I think sometimes prospective students are focused on how good the campus food is without the realization, as all three of you have pointed out, that at a certain point, it's the off campus food that's going to matter. And so another reason why I encourage parents and students when they're visiting a college that seeing the surrounding area, seeing the downtown is just as important as, being shown the library and being shown the athletic facilities. So those were really good perspectives. What would you say is maybe your favorite place to be on campus?
Yeah, so one of my favorite places to be and kind of my favorite place to show people is just the surrounding city. So Penn has a very urban campus. We're located in West Philly, but right across the river is like downtown Philadelphia with like a real bunch of cute shops, restaurants, a park. And so I think it's like really cool to always show people that aspect of it just because it really does become a big part of your life, especially as you move off campus. And so I think it's really important to kind of know the city as well as know just Penn's campus as well.
Yeah, very similar to that. We have this street called Kirkwood, which is kinda like our main street and square for, like, our town, and in the nicer weather, they block it off with, like, cones so cars can't even go on it, so people are just always there, and I think, especially coming from New Jersey, going to the middle of nowhere, Indiana was frightening, so I was like, "What's gonna be in the middle of nowhere?" But the street, the town, they do it really nice with the lights, there's stores and a lot of restaurants, and it goes for, like, many, many blocks. And it's just a really happening place, which you wouldn't expect in the middle of Indiana.
Thank you guys. You guys, some of you are in your senior year. Some of you will go immediately into the workforce. Some of you will go immediately into graduate school. Some of you will do, workforce, but you have graduate school plans. Um, what are your goals for yourself, career wise, grad school wise? And how do you feel that your college and the support that you have there is helping you toward achieving those goals?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a senior, so I have a couple more months and then I'm officially done with this stuff. But overall, I do plan on working for a startup coming out. I currently have an offer right now, waiting to approve of it. And that's kind of my plan for at least the first 2 years coming out of college is to kind of lock in with them, try to grow with the company as much as possible, try to learn from them. There's at the end of the day, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or not, there's always a lot more to learn. And I think going through the waves, going through the motions and learning from people and growing with people is extremely valuable. But on top of that, I actually do have my own company that I will temporarily be putting on hold for those 2 years that I do decide to work for this company up until I just have the enough capital, I guess, and the commitment to actually want to scale it and pursue it. Not an idea that's going to be tossed in the drain. I do feel very confident and passionate about it, but just something that I do think for time wise for my career and my future is something that would make sense just to put on hold. So following that, I just honestly want to continue to innovate as I go through my adulthood life. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to open up different venture ideas. I want to try to help people, whether it's through a product, whether it's through a service. But short term, that's kind of my plan. Long term, honestly, I'm just very excited to see where the road takes me, and that's kind of all I have to say.
Yeah, so I'm a senior as well, and I think something so coming into college, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do within business, and somewhere where really Michigan really helped me was kind of figuring that out. So I think I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have been able to intern in different fields within business. From the first year I got here as a freshman, I interned in wealth management. Then I did consulting my sophomore year. And then my junior year, this past summer, I did investment banking, which is what I'm going to ultimately do once I graduate college. And I think just having the opportunity and the support to try all these different industries, see what things I like and which ones I didn't like, and ultimately end in the industry that where I thought I fit best, was super helpful and something that I have Michigan to thank for.
Very similarly to Ignacio, I interned in investment banking this past summer and got an offer to return. So I'll be doing that for at least 2 years after I graduate. After that, kind of leaving it up in the air. I don't have any specific plans. I'm just kind of want to, explore my opportunities and see what's out there. In terms of how my school helps me prepare, Penn is a very professional culture. It's something you'll hear a lot. And it's something that I didn't really understand going into it. But I think that what that means tangibly is that you really are prepared for the workforce, especially from a social and soft skills perspective, in a way that not a lot of other schools can afford you to do. And so when I entered the workforce this past summer, I really felt prepared, both from a technical standpoint, but also from a social skills standpoint, that I really think helped me out to get my return offer.
Yeah, and I think, that's something that a lot of students underestimate. And we hear these news stories about college graduates struggling to find jobs. But when you go do an internship and that is treated like an audition, very often those offers to return can lead to that next step, and before you know it, you're into a career. Um, and so, students shouldn't think of internships necessarily as just this thing you have to do, but the best job interview you're ever going to get. The best opportunity to kind of show your stuff. I threw one more kind of new question in the chat just because it's something that's certainly coming up a lot in the news and coming up a lot, in questions that I'm getting from parents, because we're all talking about AI right now. And, today you can string together some sentences and make it seem like a human wrote a paper. Today it can, have more of a conversational tone with you than a Google search. But 5 years from now, it's going to have evolved exponentially from where it is right now. And if anybody's willing to, volunteer, take a stab at the question, kind of a two-pronged question. How has your college handled, student use of AI in the classroom? And how is college preparing students for AI in the workplace? And then maybe a kind of third follow-up to that, um, how do you see AI, from what you've learned so far, what you've experienced, changing business or business careers, the kinds of careers you're going into? Any thoughts on any of that? If anybody wants to be bold.
I guess I can start on this one. I think the university, on specifically the business school, has really embraced AI and has opened up a lot of new and very interesting classes on artificial intelligence and specifically how it can be used in the workforce. I guess thinking on the second part of the question, I think somewhere where AI can really help is in automating some of those more simpler tasks. I found this summer that there was a lot of things I was doing that I think in less than 1 year can be done by AI. But I think where you can really take an advantage of the opportunity is by learning how to use these tools to be more efficient and to optimize some of those easier tasks and be able to manage them more effectively. So I think the university is actively preparing us to be better at using this technology and to be able to implement these tools in the workforce.
Anybody else have experiences with AI, thoughts on AI, how schools approaching AI, how you expect it to change the careers of the future in business, or your corner of it?
Yeah, I can take that. Kinda going off of what he said, Indiana's been very proactive as well. On our Canvas page, they offer an AI certification that it's very asynchronous, so you can do it on your own, but get certified in it, and that's a resume booster as well, just knowing a lot about it. They have speakers come in all the time that you can go to at Kelley that talk about AI that are very, like, renowned in, I guess, artificial intelligence. They update their class policies. That really depends on the class and professor, how serious they take their AI usage and what you're allowed to do. And they have integrated new classes into the curriculum that are AI based that you can take so you can learn how to use it, different platforms, and all that stuff.
Thank you. I know there were a couple of questions on the list that I kind of skipped around and maybe we didn't come back to, but I guess one that I would like to get back to before we wrap tonight. Maybe this will be our last question of the night. I feel like other questions I didn't ask directly. Maybe we've kind of gotten to in the natural course of our conversation. But some of your schools have very low student faculty ratio. Some of your schools have much higher student faculty ratios. And whether it's 5 to 1 or 15 to 1, whenever I go on a college visit and they tell us that number, somehow it always means the same thing. Somehow it always means you'll have great access to your professors. And I don't know how a 5 to 1 and a 15 to 1 can mean the exact same thing. But boy, do they phrase it like that. So, asking TouredIt guides as not, paid spokespeople for your college in um, your own experience. And, even if you didn't have a thought about this previously, feel free to hop on after. But what can you tell us about your experience with your professors, with TAs, with advisors, with mentors, focusing, I guess, more on the educator side of that?
Yeah, I think I could start here. Honestly, from an advisor standpoint, I think Stern is very receptive to your requests, kind of like the guidance you need. And that's strictly because they have an advisor program that only overlooks Stern students outside of the grants team of the NYU community, whether that's Tisch, SBS, liberal arts. So I think in terms of the advisor standpoint, it is a very direct and receptive pathway. In terms of professors, honestly haven't had like too much of a terrible experience with them. Majority of the professors are obviously there to help you learn, but they're also there to, guide you, ask for they want to seek your advice. They want you to ask questions. And I think that's extremely valuable. In terms of TAs also super great. Haven't really had any personal issues with them. But I do think that from a different perspective, there's sometimes professors that, maybe have certain criterias that you might not understand quite going into the semester. Definitely a way that kind of tests your ability to adapt. But they're always open, meeting with you. They obviously have the office hours, which I'm sure most universities have. So nothing too much of a concern that I've personally experienced through Stern, at least. Maybe outside of Stern, couple of professors that, gave me a little trouble with, some of my late assignments, which is like obviously normal, but other than that, nothing too serious.
Yeah, I think probably similar to Stern. Although it says that the Michigan rate is 15 to 1, I think Ross is definitely smaller just because the business school is a smaller pool of students. And I think that's something that is definitely an advantage because the classes are no more than like 30 to 40 students, and the professors are all you know professors with either PhDs or graduate degrees, which I think it's something that is an advantage as opposed to like the bigger university. Because although Michigan is a very big university, the business school is definitely smaller, and that gives you, I guess, more of an opportunity to build connections with your professors, which is something that I definitely found super helpful, especially when going through some of those tougher classes. So on the professor side, I definitely have enjoyed my experience, and I would say I've also really enjoyed the mentorship programs they have at Michigan, and specifically at Ross, where you're paired with one or two mentors throughout your entire career, and they give you support both academically but also outside of the class.
And I think kind of following up on that point is another reason why it's so helpful when you do go visit a college. Um, to a see about major specific tours of a college, because when you go on the general campus visit you're going to get very general information. When you go on a major specific visit you're going to get a lot more details about the things you care about. And then another benefit to if you engage with TouredIt to get an on-campus tour pairing with somebody in your major who can give you that very specific perspective, as opposed to the general campus visit where, I can't tell you how many campus tours I've taken where the tour guide is from, the school of business or the school of engineering or the school of whatever, and they just know so little about some of the other areas. So having that opportunity to walk around with the student specifically from that school can be such an invaluable tool. Guys, I want to thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much for your great insights. We're going to post this video online, and hopefully it's going to continue to help a lot of people. But I want to thank everybody for making this possible, and I want to thank TouredIt for letting me moderate this over the 4 months that we did this. All the videos are available now on YouTube, but one more time, my name is Eric Ginsberg. I'm from Solution Prep. We do college admissions coaching in SAT and ACT prep in Central Jersey, in centers in Wall, Little Silver, Toms River, and East Brunswick, as well as online for students around the country. If you need help, we are here to help. And Joshua Bernstein from TouredIt, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for everybody to everybody for watching. Again, if you saw anybody that you wanted to visit with, please feel free to click the QR codes. We have students at over 250 schools, we're over 5,000 students across the country. So if you're ever interested in taking a personalized college tour, please feel free to use our service. If you're ever interested in just learning more about college tours, feel free to reach out to me as a college student. That's totally okay too. Thank you, Eric. This has been really fun these past 4 months, and I look forward to seeing what we do in the future.
Thanks so much, guys.